Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to an exceedingly belated edition of the news. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody's been keeping well, looking after each other, and all that good stuff. Good to be here with you. I just wanted to pop a video out, basically to make an announcement or two, and just mention one or two things that I've been kind of talking with friends about, and I've been hearing amongst sort of acquaintances in general. One of the topics that have been discussed recently has been the topic of the 15-minute cities and the restrictive measures that are being tested and trialed to eventually restrict, control, limit, ration people's general movements on a daily basis. I won't go into that too much now. In fact, I won't go into it at all. And I'm not going to also offer my opinions on this matter, but go look it up yourself. Check it out, do a bit of research on it, 15-minute cities, see what you think, and then have a little look at what's been happening over the past 2.5, 3 years. Have a look at what local councils and stuff have been doing as well. I mean, if I was to take Bournemouth as an example where I live, then the word shocking springs to mind, because they're all, of course, towing the party line, are they not? As a form of expression, not in a political sense. But yeah, interesting, very, very interesting, because that also lines up with the rollout of the technology that's happening here, right now as well. The push, of course, to get everybody smarted up in terms of smart network, digital, smart electronic networks that most households now have here in the UK for sure. I can't speak for any other country, but I can speak for here, certainly from what I know here. Cars, motorways, the mention of driverless cars already in the highway code here in the UK, which is an official book that you have to read to then go on to do your theory test before you can take your practical exam. So it's already set in stone. They clearly talk about how the infrastructure is already in place and will have the capacity to then take on that load of driverless cars, driverless vehicles, whatever it is, in the very near future. So keep your eye on the market when you sell your petrol car, because you're going to have to at some point. But that's interesting. So to check that out, 15-minute cities and what that actually entails, what they're doing now, but also if you give it a bit of thought, what you think they might be going with this at a later date. Again, it's not conspiracy theory stuff. It's not tinfoil hat wearing. I've not seen a light of day for 5 weeks. I'm sat in my basement behind my PC stuff. This is every day, in your face, on the government website, in the news, talking to local people, whatever. It's a general known thing. Problem is, some of us might not have the opinion that fits in line with the consensus. And that's where the issues lie, of course. Anyway, yeah, keep an eye out for that, because that will be coming to you, to a place near you soon. Which reminds me, because that was something that I spoke about just briefly with a friend. We met up for a brief coffee earlier this afternoon. Shane, he won't mind me mentioning his name here. So yeah, thanks for the coffee, by the way, mate. I owe you one. But he also wrote an article in the recent Light newspaper. The headline on the paper says UK doctors call for end to COVID vaccines. Well, they've been calling an end before they even started, a lot of UK doctors. Only we were getting to hear from the ones that were on the goggle box, the handled ones, unfortunately, the thousands that were against it right from the start were never really listened to, not by the masses, because the message wasn't allowed out. The messages didn't go anywhere. But anyway, I was talking to Shane about it, and he was discussing the whole narrative, the COVID narrative and the climate narrative and that sort of thing. That's what he wrote about in there. And it's very interesting because it's all about narratives. It's all about information. It's all about what you're sharing with the public, what you want them to believe, etc., etc., etc. And it's all about being first with the message and then repeating it in many ways and forms. And I say they, right, will always have the upper hand, because if you own it, you do. It's that simple. You've set it all up in the first place. You're always going to be steps ahead of everybody else. We're just mere participants. Disposable in their eyes. But I thought I'd just mention that. So we were talking about those narratives, and also linked in with that, we were talking about some initiatives, which also links in with another friend I met a couple of nights ago in a cafe just local here. And he was telling me about some initiatives, including vigils. The city of Bristol was mentioned a couple of times. So I think it's also time that that's something that we take another closer look at and start getting a little bit, let's say, present out there, and maybe interact with some people and give also people a platform to be able to talk to somebody, because there are lots of cases that again are going unreported of people suffering in a big way as a result of what's gone down in the last 2.5 years on so many levels, in so many ways. So we also want to kind of offer that as well as part of the whole idea of coming up with a couple of initiatives that will involve an interaction with the public. The feedback I was getting actually was that their interactions were much easier than, say, a couple of years ago, which kind of makes sense. And I remember when we did a vigil here in Bournemouth, it was probably the best march/demo/initiative event that we ever did in terms of participation, in terms of resonance, and in terms of it not being a good way of entering a conversation, because nobody wants that, regardless of what side of the fence you're sitting. Nobody wants that. When that happens, it's a different ball game altogether. So that's what I think, in my own personal view, should be happening soon. I will be willing to give myself up in terms of time to be of assistance in any way, shape or form that I can be, because we need to be helping people out here. I have moments where I really struggle around all of this stuff. There are a lot of people there who aren't as opinionated and gobby like me. They will suffer in silence, and we need to somehow reach out to these people. Somehow. If I can't convert the masses and show them the blatantly obvious in their faces and they still won't get it, well, what's the point in doing that? And that's not what I'm in this for anymore. I'm not there to convince people of this, that, or the other. What I can do, though, is offer my help, offer my time, offer my presence, my support, whatever, because that is what's going to be required. You ain't going to get that from the NHS, not because they're all bad people who work there, because there's hardly anybody bleeding there, which leads me to the next topic, which is narratives, old narratives, right? I left the UK in 1992 and went to Germany. I came back in 2013. Some things haven't changed, or got worse, in fact, deteriorated. One of them is the NHS, the state of the National Health Service in this country, has not changed. Hasn't changed, not one bit. It's the same old. And the same goes with other things. I just came across a headline today, and they were talking about, I keep looking up at the top of the screen there because my clock is counting down. And they were talking about the fireman strikes. The fire brigade are going to go on strike. Again, a very, very, very old narrative. I remember when I was a kid in the 70s and my dad was serving in the British Army, and the British soldiers used to always get called out with their green goddesses, that's what their green vehicles were called, and do the fire services jobs while the firemen, and maybe women, back in the day, there probably weren't many working there, so I'll say firemen with an air of confidence. Well, they could sit there and strike and get the unions involved and battle whatever powers that be were there on ground level at that time. Now, here we go again. 2023, we have the same thing happening as what happened 50 years ago. It's absolutely mental. People are not seeing this. And that's why it's important also that we do that communicating amongst us, people who have the experience of the 70s, 80s. We need to talk about this. We need to also offer that opportunity as well and everything else that goes with it. Because there are clear patterns to be identified here. I've said this a little while back about how the narratives just keep repeating themselves, whether it's a big medical scare, whether it's a war somewhere, whether it's a racial tension thing somewhere, whether it's a gender type thing or whatever. It's always the same thing. So, I thought I'd just mention that. Quite interesting. So anybody serving in the army who might be watching this, keep your eye out on that, because you'll be doing extra chores and not getting paid extra for it, because of course service personnel do not get paid extra for that. They get paid their fixed rates, whether they do other people's jobs or not at the same time. What else was I going to say? Yes. So, one little announcement is also that there will be a Flat Earth, breath of fresh air, meetup tomorrow at 1900 hours in the infamous Globe Inn in Swanage. Be there or be exceedingly spherical. I shall be there. A friend is going to come and pick me up tomorrow, which is very kind. So that'd be nice. So if you get a chance to pop round there, do come over and have a chinwag. Everybody's approachable. And yeah, let's make that group grow a little bit, and let's start getting our heads together and coming up with some ideas and all that. But I'm looking forward to that. It's been a little while. So Flat Earth meetup tomorrow at 1900 hours in the Globe in Swanage. And that is pretty much, I think, all I've got for the moment, because if I mention anything else, it's going to take me off onto a tangent, and I'm not going to end the video in time, and I don't want to do that. But on that note, I would like to say ta-ta for now. Larry's back, happy. I'm back, happy, because he's back, happy, so we're all happy. And on that note, I'll see you all soon, some of you sooner.